Hi. I wanted to pop in on this post because I already know there's going to be a lot of discussion and pushback on what I said. So I want to clarify some things. I made a post about women not relying solely on their partner men for income. And there's so many different discussions around this. This does not mean that you need to go work in the workforce and pay for daycare in order to get your own income. That's not what I mean. I have never done that. Not once. Not once have my children ever been in a daycare. Not one of them. None of them have been in school. Not even for a second. I was a stay at home mom for 9 years before getting divorced. During that time, I was also doing a lot of my own self study. I was taking certification courses for my own knowledge expansion. So much of my personal evolution actually happened while being a stay at home mom. And that is why I'm so passionate about this kind of work, this wildly awakened motherhood. And a big part of why I created it isn't just about supporting new moms or helping support women who feel lonely. My cat's going to cause problems over there. He's messing with my plants, my herbs. Um, so much of my growth, my own awakening happened while I was home with my kids. Something was ignited inside of me during the births of my children, and it progressed with each child. So the first one opened my eyes to the corruption of the industrialized obstetric system. The second one was the really liberating home birth. Dude, stop. Come here. Was the really liberating home birth that opened my eyes to what other possibilities are out there and how we're being conditioned into a certain way of life, a certain way of seeing the world, a certain way of just falling into the system and not questioning, not pushing for more, not acknowledging our own weaknesses, our own wounds. Um, there's so much depth beyond the surface that when we're just operating on this level of survival, we're not going into the depths. It's almost impossible to go beneath the surface when we're in survival mode. So if you're operating from a place of waking up every day, tending to your kids, managing the household and the finances, waiting for your husband to get home, and that is the daily cycle with no change, no reprieve, no break for yourself, no rest, no quiet and processing for your mind and your spirit. That's going to stick you in this place of where depression settles in. That is where depression settles in every time. And that's where postpartum depression comes from. Now, I think one of the most important things for women, especially like in new motherhood, is having that sisterhood. Because I think that helps alleviate a certain amount of stress simply by being able to talk with somebody. Speaking your story to somebody that you trust, somebody who's listening, give you a little bit of space to breathe. Even if you're just meeting some friends at the park, going to the zoo, taking a walk around the lake so your kids can play with someone else's kids and you have adult time. Having coffee at a play place where the kids can play. Whatever it is, those are such crucial pieces of motherhood. And if we're not, you need to make the effort. That's number one. You need to make the effort to put yourself out there to meet people. Because first of all, our society is not built in a way to where women are nurtured from a young age and initiated into this womanhood, honoring their body, honoring their cycle, learning from wise women elders who are teaching and supporting the autonomy of our body, how birth works, how sacred motherhood is, the ritual and initiation through all of these stages of maiden, mother, and crone is lost in our culture. So if we don't take the initiative to seek out these things that we need as women, as mothers, that is where we get lost. I lost myself in the first few years of motherhood. Absolutely lost myself. The only thing that brought me back was actually, weirdly enough, well, yeah, when I first moved. So yeah, the main thing that helped me in motherhood, I'll be with you guys in a second. We're getting ready to go to the Derby in town at our fair. Was seeking other moms. And I call myself an introvert, but I've always been in kind of customer service world. So I'm awkward, but I don't necessarily I'm awkward in certain conversations where I really, really, really hate small talk of like, how's the weather? How's the family? How are you doing? Like, I like deep depth. I like deeper discussions. I like uncomfortable discussions. I like allowing people to share things that are dark and uncomfortable and things that not everybody is welcome to share in our culture. We kind of dismiss the reality of the discomforts in our lives. We like to very often be like, oh, it's good. That's a very American way. How are you? Oh, I'm good. And no one is honest. I like honesty and integrity in character. And I feel like that is kind of a foundation for authentic sisterhood too, is that kind of safety in the discomfort of reality, the real world, what's going on at home. I was able to talk to other women about the problems at my house, and they allowed me that space. And I felt comfortable with them because they also had similar stories. One had been divorced. One had been divorced previously. You know who you are. I appreciate you so much. And for those, there was like 3 main women in the homeschool group I started to join in. Well, no, there was more than that. Early on, there was quite a bit of women who met often, but I would say there was 2 or 3 who I felt the most comfort in talking to. And I was able to feel understood. And without those women and without that space to meet with other people in those homeschool groups, I don't know where I would have been at this point. I don't know, because I would have just sat at home and stewed in my own sadness and loneliness. Like, I'm not someone who's meant to just sit at home. At least I wasn't then. I feel a little bit more comfortable in being at home and caring for the home and just being in that space of calm. There was something awakening in me in that time. This would have been in my mid-20s, mid to late 20s. I became a mom at 25. And then I had 3 kids under the age of 5 by the time I was 30, I think. Anyways, there was something stewing in me in that time that I was very restless at home. I couldn't just be at the house all the time with no adult interaction. Because my husband at the time, my kid's dad, worked a whole lot. So it's like the only adult interaction I ever got was like when he got home from work. And I believe all women need more than that. Women need other women. And simply in speaking with other women, there is healing that happens. Just talking, just sharing your story, just being with other women. There is such healing in that space. Um, and again, that is what I'm trying to cultivate here. That's what I feel is so important. And to come back to what I was saying about women not relying on partners for income, I feel because of the shift that's happening, culturally, we've had a lot of evolution over time. Hopefully, it's not always linear evolution. We kind of go forward and back and forward. It's not just a linear evolution of humanity. That's not how it works. There's a kind of moving forward and then moving. There's extremes that are taken, and then we kind of fall back. There's a lot of corruption that takes hold in the world. So it's not just a linear battle of human evolution, the way we're kind of taught that it is. But in this place we are now, I think that I don't necessarily want to say naive. And maybe naive is the right word, to be a partner. And I'm not even just going to say women, because men have chosen to stay home. I have my own opinions on that. I say women in particular because that's who I'm speaking to. Women, mothers, to choose to stay home. And yes, it is a choice, no matter what. We might feel like we don't have a choice in the option because daycare prices are so insane that it doesn't make sense for me to go to work. Of course, I'm going to choose to stay home with my kids because I want to raise them. All of that is absolutely valid. It's still a choice. And I think that we need to open our minds beyond the idea of being in the workforce or being at home. Because it's not just, we don't just have two options. It's not going to work for somebody else or being able to stay home with our kids. Like, there's so much variance now that we can, like I said, find simple hobbies of it. Like, I started, this was the big one for me. Like, I was doing lots of certifications for nutrition. I started teaching yoga. I started doing DoorDash. I started doing Instacart. And those I did on literally the one day a week that my husband at the time was home. Sundays were the only day that I really had any time to go and do anything for myself. I would occasionally do DoorDash or like delivery work with my kids, but that is very difficult when your kids are young. But I started just exploring my own hobbies, explore your own joys. What do you love to do? What nurtures your soul? Whether it be herbs, sewing, music, what hobbies are out there, art, whatever it may be. I started sewing, and actually for a good amount of time, and I'm going to get back into it more as winter comes around because I have so much going on right now. I started sewing children's clothes for my kids. So I cloth diapered. The regular pants in the stores never fit. I had a friend who was like, yeah, try these pants. They're like a stretchy fabric. Started making them. And then I started getting stuff at the thrift store, and I would style. I would take like women's clothes, patterns, prints, cut them out, and make baby clothes. And I'm making them now. I do tie-dye onesies, and I make baby pants. If you're interested, contact me. I can send you what I got. But I have photos up on my page as well. So I did that for a period of time, and that was I would say the most recent thing I did before asking for a divorce. And I made a decent amount of money doing that. Just, I wasn't sewing all that much all the time. And it got to a point where I actually had people requesting certain styles or wanting a certain design. I even started doing hoodies. And I loved doing all that. So all of that to say, find what you love. This is where you get to explore. So think of it this way. Being a stay-at-home mom, allowed me, and I say this, I'm speaking from personal experience, but I think this can translate to a lot of people's stories. Being a stay-at-home mom, in the beginning, I did rely solely on my husband's income, but it also, as I started to awaken more and feel kind of that loneliness, like I was missing something, it's because I was missing something. I was missing my own creative expression. So being able to stay home, one, allowed me to be home, but it also awakened something inside me. And then it gave me the opportunity to explore my own creative endeavors because I didn't have to abide by somebody else's work schedule or someone else's requirements or having to leave and go to a job and get daycare and whatever it may. That is it's a very traditional way of thinking of working and making money. And that's what I've been pushing back against even since long before I ever got divorced, because I refused to go back into that workforce after I had my kids because it did not work with breastfeeding. I couldn't do it because I couldn't pump properly. So I knew that if I went back to work, which I had fully intended to do, really, Kat, I would have lost the breastfeeding relationship with my first son. And I breastfed for 2 years for him, 4 years with my second child, and almost 3 years with my third. So had I not made the decision to stay home, I would never have been able to breastfeed that long. I probably wouldn't have made it 6 months. And that's another reality we have to understand, because breastfeeding is extremely crucial to nutrition and bonding. It builds the immune system in a different way. There's no comparison to formula. There's not. Yes, it's good that we have formula as backup in the worst case scenarios, but people were jumping to it way too fast and making it comparative to breast milk when there's zero comparison. It's not even close to the same capacity that breast milk is. Breast milk is designed for your child. When they breastfeed, it stimulates with their saliva, and you literally produce milk for your baby. Formulas don't do that. And I knew how important that was for me personally. Breastfeeding was super important. So that is the main reason I decided to stay home. I had never intended to be a stay-at-home mom, and even my kid's dad at the time wasn't really for it either. But I was like, I know this needs to happen. And with that is how like I said, I kind of lost myself in the process, but I also got the space to explore myself in a really different way. It allowed me, I did more kind of journeys. I started doing kind of shamanic journeying, past life regression. I started doing really deep soul work along with my own exploration, creative expressions of what are ways that I can create things that can also work as a way of bringing in income. So it's not as cut and dry of go to the workforce, put your kid in daycare, or stay home and rely on your partner. There's so much wiggle room in the middle of what can you do to nurture yourself, nurture your own creative expression in order to help bring in money. It doesn't have to be a full-time job. It doesn't have to be a ton of money a month. Just something that allows you to create for yourself, even. Art, painting, like there's so many different things you can do. Even if it's just a few $100s a month that you're still bringing. And I feel like there's a fulfillment to that as well. Contributing something to the household, even, I mean, yes, you're taking care of the household as women, stay-at-home moms, but to be able to bring in tangible income did bring a different level of fulfillment for me. We have such a kind of negative viewpoint around money, but money's important. It's not evil. It's how in integrity are we when we are making our money? In what ways are we nourishing ourselves and in alignment to bring the money into us? Like the sewing for me was very organic. I didn't see that as like I'm going to start sewing to make a business. It was like, oh, those pants are really cute. Can you make some for me? And then I had a whole bunch of friends who wanted baby pants. It was a super organic thing. And I never did like official selling per se. I had a page, I think, but that kind of went away after I got divorced because my priority shifted to having to. So I say do that before things go bad, because you will not predict if a marriage or a relationship will fall apart. You can do and I feel that the more reliant you are, the more dependent you are on your partner, the less true you are to yourself about the reality of your relationship. If it starts to go in different directions, and it's not necessarily a bad thing that you move into different directions from a partner. I am now of the understanding that is meant to be. I don't believe that a relationship is meant to last forever, especially if you've only been like with one person, because there's so much that we learn, and we should be growing and evolving in different ways. Can we do that with a partner? Yes. Will it be in full integrity and authenticity to ourselves? Possibly not. Because if we're constantly in accommodation with another person, always accommodating another person with ourselves and our decision making, we can often betray ourselves unconsciously in order to stay in union with that person, if that makes sense. That's why I think that time of being alone at some point in your adult life is super important to your own personal awakening. It does not mean you have to be single forever, but there is really amazing healing that happens in that. And it awakens a new level of growth that wouldn't happen if you dull yourself in a way just to make a relationship work. And like I said, far too often I've heard the stories from women who don't have the ability to get out of a relationship because they don't have their own finances. And they're staying in something that's abusive, that they know doesn't serve them. Or they're scared to start over. They're scared that they're not going to find another partner. They're scared to rent their own space, to have their own home, to try to handle everything on their own along with their kids. It's all scary. But it is so expansive to take that step and do it. I would not be the person I am today had I chosen to stay in that marriage. I wouldn't be. It's not necessarily a bad thing of what I would be had I stayed in that marriage. It's just not at all I've evolved in such different ways in that timeline, in the 5 years, that there's no way I would have been in this place now had I stayed in that relationship. So yeah, I think I'm going to leave it at that. My kids are waiting for me. We're going to go to the demo derby. Not really my thing, but we're going to go anyways. So thank you, everyone. Have a lovely day. Bye.